This video is sponsored by the International Society for Primal People. Bigfoot of the Blues by Vance Orchard. Chapter 9. Well, the so-called mother of all Bigfoot track sightings was to show up in 1991. There were some exciting things on the Blue Mountains agenda as the 80s rolled out their course. These included the filming of a Bigfoot documentary in 1987 by ABC's Good Morning America. Photographs made in 1988 of a Bigfoot, Dwayne Freeman, son of Paul Freeman, and a find of unique rocks by the same father-son team in 1990. Oddly enough, while those rocks bore interesting pictographs or Indian writing, some of the artwork on the rocks had a remarkable resemblance to a Bigfoot. In this same time frame, there was the change in Bigfoot-seeking philosophy on the part of Paul Freeman, of all the big-time Bigfoot hunters, then devoting the most time in this search. And possibly, that facet of this whole Bigfoot saga was the really big one as the 1982 to 92 decade of the saga reeled out to be a conclusion. Among his fellow Bigfoot seekers, there has ranged a wide diversity of opinions about the creature, what it was, and what it was all about. It was a range from that of WSU anthropologist Grover Krantz, who felt that killing one was the only way to obtain proof. This was a belief held by Freeman from the time he saw the first one and began drawing ridicule for his reporting the first sighting. He plain was going to kill one. The range of feelings about Bigfoot went from the live and let live philosophy of longtime Blue Mountain resident Wes Summerlin. I believe the Bigfoots would like to communicate with humans, Summerlin said on many occasions. I think it's just an animal that wants to be friendly. Renee DeHinden, a Richmond, BC Bigfoot researcher for about 40 years, has never seen a Bigfoot, but has delved into a host of sightings and activity up and down the Pacific coast and over to Russia and China. But he hopes someday to fulfill the desire to see one. Seeing a Sasquatch once in your lifetime is all anyone can ask for, DeHinden told Portland, Oregonian reporter Dick Cockle in 1987. He further added, I don't know if I would believe it if you saw a Bigfoot. You still wonder if there is anything out there. This, of course, is not an opinion shared by Krantz, long convinced that truly there has to be something out there, an opinion largely based on the sizable amount of evidence favoring such a conclusion. Another Walla Wallan, the late Dick Bradford, trapped furs for half a century in the Blue Mountains. He told me that he had never seen a Bigfoot, but everybody who sees it says it is the most unusual thing of their life. Bradford's closest encounter came one day while running a trap line on Mill Creek above Walla Walla a few miles. He'd left his wife, who accompanied him that day, seated on a log to await his return. When he got back, he found her a little excited and telling me that she had felt the presence of something in the brush nearby while I was gone. Dick told me he couldn't explain the feeling experienced by his wife that day. Also unexplained was a huge boulder about 4 feet in diameter to which Dick had wired a trap to the day before. Something had lifted the boulder and threw it about 30 feet to one side, he said. That something very possibly was the cause of his wife's uneasiness over having felt a presence nearby, he added. Freeman was still toting a high-powered rifle in 1987 when ABC's camera crew showed up to film the documentary footage in the Blues. He was also feeling strongly about the ridicule and rebukes after his 1982 encounter. He was fiercely determined to get a Bigfoot, even if it meant shooting one. There's only one way to prove the creatures exist, Freeman told Cockle in October of 1987. I'm going to shoot one, he stated. I don't care who likes it or don't. I'm going to do it. You've got to have a body or a specimen Sasquatch. By the end of a year's time to say, that attitude had changed. Freeman had left his rifle at home and was instead packing a movie camera. Later, he started using a video camcorder. He was toting an old movie camera that day in 1988 when his son captured some photos of a Bigfoot with a 35mm camera. The Walla Walla Union Bulletin carried color photos on page 1 on 7 October 1988. A dark object looms up in the brush as it walked away from the Freemans. The shots were taken near the border of the watershed, where several other tracks and sightings of the Bigfoot had been recorded by Freeman and others. At the time, Freeman termed the pictures the most significant yet. "These pictures are great," he added. "I know that people have said all along, 'He's lying, there's nothing there.' But I know what I saw, and I know what my son took pictures of." He said the Bigfoot was over 7 feet tall and weighed around 600 to 700 pounds, had a bulky build and extremely long arms. Its hair was dark and the facial hair grayish. There was no question about it. This photographic evidence of a Bigfoot was the high point of the late 80s for the Freemans. This father-son team had another successful Blue Mountain sortie, though, and it possibly has a Bigfoot tie-in. Freeman is convinced it definitely has Bigfoot connotations. Exploring a deep pocket of the Blue Mountains one day, the two men located an overhang which created a cave of sorts, a shelter if you will. There was evidence the depression had served just that purpose, either as a permanent abode or at least temporary, Freeman figures. The overhang of rocks and earth was about 30 feet wide, and the men could go into it about 15 feet or so, Freeman recalls. The biggest of several rocks they found there was ornamented with stick figures and other figures resembling the pictographs found and ascribed to ancient Indians. It was about 24 inches across and 7 inches thick, probably weighing close to 200 pounds. The rock has on it what resembles a Bigfoot, shown walking away, but with its head cocked as if peering back. A smaller rock has a similar object on it, both painted there with black ashes and other material. Other smaller rocks in the collection are carved to resemble heads of persons, or maybe a Bigfoot. Lawrence Hussey, an anthropologist and archaeologist who teaches at Walla Walla Community College, was called to inspect the Freeman rocks. He said the rocks appeared to be genuine American Indian artifacts, but he wouldn't speculate on their age. Hussey, however, said he doubted the Indian artist intended to represent Bigfoot in his work with the rocks, either by carving or painting with primitive pigments. He held the opinion that the painted figure was instead that of a gigantic hand. Grover Krantz, contacted by the Oregonian's Cockle, said Freeman's rock collection was just something that cannot be evaluated. The two Freemans, both hefty men, spent the best part of an entire day hauling their find from its cavern. "It took us all day to get it out," Freeman recalls. "It must have been around 1 p.m. by the time we got home. It came loose once and rolled back into a boggy area. We had to rig up a sling with poles to carry it out between us. It rubbed our shoulders raw, and I was sore as hell for days afterwards." Whether or not the unique rock curios turned out to be related to Bigfoot of the Blues, they make an interesting bit of conjecture for this interesting subject. Well, the 80s wound out their course, and we're into the 90s, and the mother of all track sightings is just around the corner. I thought when I talked to an ex-Forest Service ranger in Willow Creek, California, about his sighting of tracks, that his sighting was sizable. The man had found several miles of Bigfoot tracks. What that ranger found in Northern California was to be equaled, and then some, by the miles of track we found coming out of the Blue Mountains in January of 1991. End of chapter.